All right, joined with us today is billionaire Ross MacArthur with Follow the Deal. If you don't understand that reference, then you need to go back and listen to our last episode on the Reinvest podcast with Ross. Joined with us today. He's got the monocle. He's got the pipe. You've got the, what is that? It's not a fedora.
I don't know. It's just a cool looking hat.
Cool looking hat. I'm not a hat guy, so you can pull that off way better, way better. But no, excited to be on today, and got a couple props here, but we're going to jump into some real estate related questions, maybe for the person who doesn't know how to make that jump into real estate. Hopefully we can pull the curtain back on that. So I guess the question, Ross, how do you start investing in real estate when you're working a full-time job?
Yeah, well, we were laughing about this. I think that's where most people start, is it's not a full-time job. I mean, some people go into real estate agents like you guys have done and a lot of other folks have done, but usually you have a full-time job and you start to get interested in it. So I think first, before you even start thinking about real estate, as you start getting interested in it and you start deciding what you want to do, is like, do you want to be an active investor or do you want to be a passive investor?
Right.
Because they're two very different things, right, guys?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you hit it on the head there. I think a lot of the time you look at real estate and you make the assumption, I want to get into real estate, but there's more questions that you need to be asking, right? So let's make the assumption that somebody wants to be on the active side of real estate. What would be the steps for them to even pursue that, right? Because with passive, I mean, there's a process, and that could be its own video that maybe we can kind of come back and touch on. But essentially, you're going to ask some of the same high-level questions, but how do you find the right operators, partner with them, because they're the ones you're investing kind of in the jockey, so to speak. But on the active side, you're running kind of a business. And so there is a workflow that has to happen there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's just assume that everyone who's listening wants to be active, right? To your point. And so then you have to decide, like, why am I even interested in investing? Because the strategy becomes very different. So some people, it's just simply to diversify. Nothing more, nothing less. They got some cash sitting. They don't want to put it in the market. They want to put it in a couple hard assets, we'll call it. Some people just want side income, right? They truly they can only make X of their job, and this is a way for them to make 2X, but they don't want to leave their job. A lot of people are very happy with W-2s. Like, everyone's not trying to escape the rat race. Some people love it. For me personally, it was in the very beginning, it was just to lower my retirement age. So essentially a retirement fund. But then some people are very much that they want to do this full time and they want to ultimately leave their W-2. Mm-hmm. So depending on that answer, it becomes very different. There was a really cool statistic though, that out of anybody who makes $100,000 or more, 62% of those people have a side hustle. And for a lot of us, it's real estate, right? It is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, the side hustle thing can be kind of, there's two sides to that coin, right? And there's the person that has 10 side hustles, and they're kind of the proverbial entrepreneur, but you have to ask yourself, are those really profitable and worth your time? So there's a focus question involved there. But real estate, because of the scalability of it, actually has the ability to be a great side hustle.
100%. There's a lot of people we talk to every day, and you guys talk to every day, that are significantly holding real estate, like multi-million dollars of real estate. And there's some vice president, at some company, or CEO at some company. Some of the wealthiest people have full-time jobs in real estate. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of question two people. Once they decide that they're active, is then like, how big do they want to grow it? How much do they want to participate in it? And then really what we're going to talk about today is, what are some steps to decide what you're going to invest in and how to get that company off the ground, whether it's one project or 100 projects. So I think the first thing that any investor has to decide, and you guys did and we did it early on, is what type of asset are you going to invest in? Right. And for the sake of conversation today, we could talk about 100, right? I mean, there's so many niches to real estate, but single family, right? Obvious. Small multifamily. And when we say small multifamily, I guess I'd classify that as like 2 units to maybe 8 or 10 in that range. Vacation rentals, I live in Florida. Gosh, vacation rentals are everywhere. Mobile home parks has become a big thing. Self-storage, especially during COVID, became a really big thing. And then, of course, large multifamily, and there's 100 other versions of that, office, industrial, so on and so forth. But this part becomes a stall for, I think, a lot of investors. Do you guys agree?
Absolutely.
It can
Well, and
feel
it's easy to
overwhelming.
lose focus. It's easy to say, well, today I'm going to start evaluating a single family house, and then another opportunity kind of glints off in the distance, and you turn over and you look at that opportunity, and then you're looking at this opportunity, and you never truly learn an asset class.
Yeah.
I think the jump, there's some jumps that are more organic in nature, going from single family to multifamily, right? You're already used to long-term leases with tenants. You're used to kind of the repairs and maintenance model. And then you're bringing just more of those single families under one roof in a multifamily scenario. So that feels kind of like a natural progression for people. But jumping into something like a mobile home park is more different than one might think. Laws function differently in a mobile home park. The relationship between the owner and the resident in the park is different. So yeah, you really do have to kind of hone in and commit to something. What would you say? People will get kind of analysis paralysis, but yet there is an education component that you want to nail down before you jump.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There is analysis paralysis that happens here because they won't pick one, and they're also the kind of shiny quarter person. So whatever somebody's talking about, like on your guys' platform, if somebody last week was talking about RV or self storage, like all of a sudden they're looking into that, right? They were just
Right.
multifamily, and now they're debris. You kind of have to put blinders on once you decide. Doesn't mean you don't pivot. We've all pivoted, single family, multifamily, large multifamily. But I think you absolutely have to, because if not, you will never get started. So,
Yep.
Everybody who's listening, for the beginners out there, pick an asset class, stick with it, start to do some deals, and then grow from there.
Well, I remember reading a lot of entrepreneurial books starting out in real estate and in general, and they were talking about the difference between a 40-watt light bulb and a 40-watt laser. And a 40-watt light bulb is your standard, light bulb in your house. But a 40-watt laser is going to cut some crap. It's going to like slice through some things. So it really is a matter of focus and sticking with it long enough to see something happen there. So let's say that you find the asset type that you want. Kind of the next thing is figuring out where you want it, right?
Absolutely. And this, again, it's another big stalling point, right? These are early questions that you have to answer, but geographical area. You guys particularly are Lima, Ohio, or Lima, Ohio, depending on where you're from, right? For me, it's Indiana / kind of, I'll say Southern Michigan today. That's kind of our target market. So you have to figure out where, but the type of asset you're buying, like as an example, vacation rentals. Like, let's be honest, the tertiary markets in Indiana that we have apartments in probably aren't great for vacation rentals, but my backyard in Orlando, Florida is a hotbed, right? So what your asset class also helps, determine your geographical area.
Yeah.
That's really key to figure out. That's why that's step one, and this is step two.
And what I want to comment on the geographical area is I'd like to encourage people to first make an assumption that your backyard could be a viable spot for you to invest. I know there's a lot of information out there about some of the up and coming areas across the country, and that can oftentimes, as a starting point, be overwhelming for people because you're like, well, which one do I pick? How do I invest out of state? And your local knowledge of where you live and do life, that is actually one of the biggest competitive advantages that you might have starting out. And it may be, that you abridge into something out of state later, but don't overlook where you live.
Right, and maybe it's just getting the first deal done in your backyard.
Yeah.
And then, you have the confidence to go do that in a market that you would really want to invest in elsewhere, outside, out of state, out of city, whatever that would be. Or
maybe it's if you want to go into vacation rentals and you take vacations in Myrtle Beach consistently. Well, maybe that's one of the first places you're going to look at getting a vacation rental. You're overcoming some of the lessons you might have to learn somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. So we picked our asset class, we picked our geographical area, and now it's time to actually go out and start to try to acquire, right? Again, these are basics 101. And so you have to figure out your acquisition strategy, your pipeline strategy. And this is totally different for every individual person out there. So are you going to just look on the MLS, Zillow, for small multifamily or residential? Are you going to look at LoopNet or Crexi as an example? our co-star and get a subscription to that, which is very expensive, by the way. But a subscription to that.
We can vouch for that. And they're unwilling to move the price on that. Let me tell you.
They're unwilling. They're proud. So, to start to look for stuff there. Are you going to partner with a local agent or broker, as an example, to help you not only find on market, but off market? There's wholesalers. For anybody who's not familiar with that term, essentially the middleman, where they're finding, properties for sale at a discounted rate, and they're going to, sell you that contract and find it off market. Or you can go find off market deals yourself, even through things like PropStream, as an example, is a good one to use to kind of look up off market properties. So what is your funnel pipeline? Because if you're just sitting back and hoping that, Seth calls you one day magically because he heard you were looking to buy real estate, that's not going to happen, right? So you're going to have to work and treat this part, step 3, as essentially a sales cycle or a sales pipeline.
And probably the most low-hanging fruit if you're just starting. I mean, the absolute lowest hanging fruit is hopping on Zillow, hopping on Realtor, or contacting a local realtor in the area you're looking, and just starting to build those relationships. Because whether you know it or not, you're probably going to want to have some relationships with the local real estate agents in that area, no matter what, whether you're going to use them to buy deals or not, because they're going to be a good resource for you later on.
There's a lot of aligned interest too when you call a realtor and you're looking to buy a property. They want to give you access to all of their network and their information that's going to help you close that deal, because they want to get paid a commission. So there's a lot of aligned interest in using them as a starting point on that, for sure.
So now we kind of talked about the asset, we talked about the area that we're investing in, we talked about how we're going to acquire deals. Step 4 kind of goes right along with the first 3. We talked about this a lot earlier, but you need to obviously some form of broker, residential or commercial broker, as a third-party partner. Third-party partners are crucial, especially whether you're local or you're out of state. Especially if you're out of state, it is very crucial. So obviously you guys are super familiar with the broker side of it and how important that is. The second thing you got to find is finances, right? You need to find a local lender. Mm-hmm. And this was a struggle for me personally, and I'm assuming you guys as well early on, but going to that local credit union and that local bank, anybody who's been doing real estate for a while will tell you that's where you start. That's your best terms generally. That's the best relationship you'll get. And before you even do that, Google what a personal financial statement is, or PFS, and fill that out, and then call and ask to talk to the bank's commercial lender or VP of commercial lending. Generally, you're going to get them on the phone, do an introduction call, explain the type of target you're going, understand the terms you can get, and as a follow-up email, send them your personal financial statement, because that's one of the things that's going to get you in the door to get you moving. And Seth, I didn't know if you had anything to add to those first 2 or not, but I want to pause real quick.
Yeah, no, though. I mean, the only thing I would add is, what are some of those other third-party partners that you'd want to start building some relationships with as you start investing in a new area or it fits in your backyard?
Yeah, there's probably 3 other ones. So insurance broker, I know that sounds probably like duh, like I need to insure the property, but there's a big difference between an insurance broker that deals with investment properties, whether flip, vacation rentals, or long-term buy and hold multifamily. Like, there is a specific niche there that somebody's either familiar with that or not. And if they're not familiar with it, it can be really painful. So that's a key one. And guess what? Your realtor probably knows one. So AKA, really good to know realtor broker relationship there. And then of course, a property management company as the 4th one. That is, I know there's a lot of people that self-manage. We could have a whole nother podcast and segment about the power of property management and what to look for. But having a third-party property manager, so you're not dealing with tenants, I think is worth every penny you pay, as long as they're a decent company. Yeah. And the final one is a CPA that specializes in real estate investments. A lot of reasons why we all invest in real estate is for the tax benefits. But it's funny how many people you talk to that will go buy, $500,000 property, but they won't pay essentially a CPA who specializes in this $1,000 a year to help them. Yep. Like, that makes no sense.
You've done the hardest work, and now you're gonna, trip over a dollar to pick up a penny type thing.
100%. But if you do those things for third party, you kind of have your team, as I like to say it. You have your team. But, Garrett, did you have anything else there was 5 key third partners? I hope I didn't miss any.
No, I think, and even the CPA segues a little bit into understanding how you're going to operate that business, right? If you're out of state, you're going to have to apply correctly, right, with the right entities. You're going to have an operating agreement set up with, if you have other physical partners that have ownership in your company, and a great real estate attorney, either in the area that you're investing in or in your backyard is going to be key that way. What else would you add to that, Ross? Just kind of, landing the plane on getting started in real estate.
Yeah, so you talked about, setting up a business, right? Generally, LLC works best, but, again, consult the right people to make sure that's the right setup for you. Doing an operating agreement, whether a lawyer can help you with that, or guess what? There is Google, and you can find some pretty decent templates out there, whatever you feel comfortable with. But the third one is, honestly, it sounds like kind of basic blocking and tackling again, but having a separate email and shared drive, treat this like a business. Don't let things clog up your email and your personal email. Have it separate, create folders within your email. It sounds basic, but it's very, very helpful early on. And then having a separate accounting system or software. Most people, if you start Googling things out there, you'll see the programs like Stessa. Of course, there's QuickBooks. Stessa for me was always one that was really easy. There is a free version of it still out there. And so that's a really good basic software that you can keep track of your books for and your documentation. And then, of course, you need an underwriting tool. How do you determine whether a property makes sense or not in your criteria to buy, which could almost go up above in a different category. But once you figure out, I'm going to invest in a certain category, how do you figure out whether a deal is a deal? So you have to either create, or guess what? Again, power of Google. There's a lot of templates out there to find.
There are. That's right.
And even with that, how are you underwriting a property? It all goes back to leaning on the team that you have surrounded yourself with and verifying, trust but verifying that information that you found out with the brokers that you've developed relationships with and some of the other key players in that area.
I think just in closing too, we've kind of laid out a framework or a system for somebody to work through when it comes to how do I get started? How do I make that first acquisition? What are the resources in place for that? Once you do that once, that's a proof of concept, and it's going to give you confidence moving forward.
100%. And everything we just talked about, and Seth and Garrett, tell me if you disagree, can be completed in 60 days or less.
Yep,
absolutely.
So, awesome. Anybody who's been sitting here thinking about investing in real estate for 5, 10 years, even the last year, the goal of this segment for you guys and from Seth and Garrett and myself is that it's not that complicated. If you're ready to do it, follow this framework and get started.